everyone, my name is Naura Devita, number 28 from group 7.
My name is Aisya and my present number is 2.
My name is Daffa Herlambang and my present number is 20.
My name is Naufal Hiruchi Dhiaulhaq and my present number is 27.
And my name is Rasyifa Rusharijanto, my present number is 32.
Today, our group will discuss two books. The first one is Doing Qualitative Research by Jules Bouvet, and the second one is Social Research Methods by Newman. Now, I will begin to discuss from the first book in chapter 5. Reading Society, Text, Images, and Things. The first one is text. So, there are two kinds of text. The first one is non-fiction. In brief, when using documents in naturalistic inquiry, researchers must always estimate their level of self-presentation or dramaturgy and separate it from its descriptive context. The second one is fiction. Condensed fiction filtered from the reality of many people. And fictional characters provide a cultural model or mold for real people to make their own lives afterwards. Images, pictures, paintings, maps, photography, films. In this era, we have a great opportunity to use pictures, paintings, photography, and film as additional sources for naturalistic inquiry. Examples are ancestral paintings, news photography, photo reportage, news television footage, in-depth documentaries, and so on. So the last one are things. Basically, people order something according to their social structure, so researchers can read the structure of various things. For example, the physical layout of a family home can provide researchers with information about contemporary intimacy, rules, and limits applied by a family. Next is practical methodology in reading society. There are three focus limitation classes that will be found in field studies. Namely, the first one is the ego document. This document is part of the symbolic order of daily life that guides one's actions and thoughts. The second one is photo. A picture has its own meaning. The picture can reveal the relationships of people in it. And the last one is space. Travel space or routine is a point of view to see how people organize their daily lives.
I will present about disentangling society, the analysis of social network. The previous three chapters consider different strategies for finding out the public. This chapter on the one hand suggests one more strategy for finding out, exploring social network. On the other hand, it provides a specific perspective on what you might have found seeing it through the lens of social networking. Because social interaction in the world today often occur outside the traditional boundaries of family, village, state, or social class, this chapter shifts focus on those who view society as collection of social network. Analysis and theory of social network. With the increasingly broad fabric of the human web, that is, with globalization, both the cause and consequence of, for example, poverty reach even further than before. From the perspective of social networking, we can see that poverty is consequence of the definition of labor in the global economy, leading to exclusion from employment opportunity for the rich category of people, the so-called lower class, and for all the progressive countries in the world. Application of social network analysis naturally. Investigation. Analysis of life history. Franz Becker. In the 1970s, French sociologists Daniel and Irene Becters made a study of artisanal bakery that dominated the French bakery sector at the time. Becters and Becterium 1981. Initially, Becters was trained as a quantitative sociologist in the field of labor studies, and they became interested in why artisanal bread making lasts so long in France when is the surrounding countries it was replaced the bread production introduced as spread by modernization theory intelligently, they argued to match large-scale survey. However, this result is limited success because most bakers did not want to participate. They saw the survey as increasing the experiment. Informal discussion with some of them, the Paget region when the couple was on vacation, river, uh, reducing present in the history of the baker life. This unusual finding motivation the adapt the principle of naturalist increase, and they sit with the bakers to listen to their stories, especially focusing on the course of life. Participial methodology in breaking down the community. So far, this chapter has discussed social networking from theoretical and empirical point of view. To conclude this chapter, we suggest a number of practical concepts to consider in the naturalistic social networking analysis. Naturalistic inquiry, the very responsive to empirical situation that are being investigated. Because of this, one cannot prescribe this type of procedure cookbook. The most general and practical advice then can be give to keep your eyes open the social relation of the people you are integrated in. Social network analysis is not difficult to being with asking question about who is related to who, the nature, the relation, and how the natural relationship influence behavior. Spending time with someone help you understand their daily social life. Conclusion: because social integration is no longer limited to the traditional borders of the family, social class, or nation, a relational view of society is more than ever needed. Formal social networking theory over the advantage of standardization, which encourages the processing of large volume of relational data, but at superficial prices. Analysis of social network at the focus is on what social relation mean to community member. Understanding change present major challenge for a relational view. Seeing competition, conflict, and collaboration bring result into it. These are integrated in various ways, and change are often unplanned result.
Today we will present about experimental research. Some people who have jumped into the world of research might be confused which technique is right for conducting a study. Experiments are often artificial, which means that the experiments intentionally control the research situation and deliberately combines variables that are theoretically relevant when setting aside variables without causal importance for a hypothesis. Social science experiments have a very strong logic, but we face various practical and ethical limitations. With experimentation, we are limited to ask for some questions that have special conditions that we can manipulate and which are clearly included in ethical standards for research with humans. Experimental are the most appropriate techniques for problems that have a narrow scope or scale. From 1900 to 1950, social researchers elaborated the experimental method. So, this method has strong roots in various fields, and there are 4 trends to accelerate the expansion of experimental social research. Number 3, changes in study participants. People who are used as a participant over time will be changed. And the last one, the practical application of this method. The use of experimental method for various applied purposes. In empirical-based experiments aim to determine the significance of the influence of the independent variables on certain dependent variables. We often use statistical techniques in experimental research to see how likely the outcome is predicted by the theory. If the results of theoretical predictions have low probability but occur periodically, our belief in the truth of the theory grows. Random assignments facilitated comparisons between groups by creating similar groups. The purpose is that there are no groups differences with respect to variables that can provide alternative explanations for causal relationship. Random assignments are simple. Begin with a group of cases and then divide the groups into 2 or more groups using a random process. Next one is the logic of experimental design, and it divided into 3 important points. The first one is experimental research language. Experimental research language is divided into 7 parts. The first one is treatment or independent variables, second one is dependent variable, third one is pretest, the fourth one is post-test, the fifth one is experimental group, the sixth one is control group, and the last one is random assignment. So the second important point is several stages in conducting experiments. So after a few basic steps have been taken, the next thing to do is to narrow the topic down to a question that can be tested and then develop a hypothesis with several variables. So the last important point is control in experiments. Control is very important in experimental research. And control can eliminate alternative explanation that can undermine efforts to establish causality. And sometimes fraud is used to control experiment settings. The purpose of fraud is used to control the things that are heard and seen by the participants and the things they believe are happening that will create a fictional story. So there are 11 types of plans which has their respective functions. So there are the design of a classic experiments, pre-trial designs, one short case study designs, one group pretest post-test designs, static group comparisons, two group post-test only designs, interrupted time series, equivalent time series, Latin square designs, Salmon 4 group designs, and the last one is Factorian designs. Design notations is a system of abbreviations to symbolize the parts in the design of an experiment. This reveals a complex description with long paragraphs about parts of the experiments in 5 or 6 symbols arranged in 2 lines. Internal and external validity has 3 important points. The first one is logic of internal validity. Internal validity occurs when the independent variables affect the dependent variables. The second one is threats to internal validity. There are 12 types of threats to internal validity. The first one is selection bias, history, methodations, testing, instrumentations, experimental morality, statistical regression effects, division of treatment or contaminations, compensatory behavior, researcher expectation, characteristic of demand, and the last one is placebo effect. The last point is external validity and field trials. External validity is the effectiveness in generalizing experimental findings. Trials of external validity can be complex because external validity can involve some forms of generalizations. External validity involves 3 forms of generalizations that do not always overlap. There are population generalizations, naturalistic generalizations, and the last one is theoretical generalizations. Practical considerations has 3 important points. The first one is planning and testing. During the planning phase, threats to the internal variables are highly anticipated, developing a regular system and testing each tool to be used after the trial used to the interview. The second one is instruction to the participants. Making instruction for participants must be careful and follow the prepared scripts. The last one is post-trial interview. The interview must be conducted for 3 reasons. First, if using fraud, it must ethically give the briefing to participants. Second, in order to learn about the participants' thought and how the definition of the situation affects their behavior. And the third one, in order to explain, it is important not to reveal the true nature of the experiment to another potential participants. Ethical considerations are the most significant problems in most experiments because they are often disruptive, intervening with ordinary activities. The experimental treatment may involve putting people in artificial social settings and asking them to be involved in certain activities. Sometimes, researchers use deception in social experiments by tempting participants temporarily. The fraud may be acceptable, but only if there are no other events to achieve the research objectives.
Next discussion about is survey research. Surveys are the most widely used social science data collection technique. Survey have many uses and come in many forms. Telephone interview, internet polls, and various types of questionnaires. Survey research is growing in a positive approach to social science. Surveys are quantitative opponents. Most surveys ask respondents questions about their beliefs, opinion, and characteristics. The survey is said to be appropriate if the interviewer can understand the belief or behavior of the answer the respondent gave. Next is logic of survey research. Researchers usually take a sample of many respondents and ask the same question to all of them. Researchers measure various variables with question and test hypotheses simultaneously. The researchers consult respondent answer to question about the behavior or characteristic and experience. Next, stage in conducting a survey. To begin the survey, the researchers begin with the problems in the study. First, develop hypothesis, decide on type of survey, letter, interview, telephone, write survey question, decide on response categories, and design the result of thought. Second, plan how to record data and do a trial run. Third, defining on the target population, obtain a sampling frame, deciding a number of sample and choose a sample. Fourth, get respondent, conducting interview and record data. Fifth, enter data to a computer, recheck all data, and do statistical analysis of data. And last, explain the method and finding in the research report and present the result of research to other parties to get criticism and evaluation. Next is making questionnaires. In this topic, have 5 points. The first, principle for writing good question. Writing good survey question involves mixture of art and science. These two main principles can guide writing good survey question. Second, respondent memories. Survey research recognize that memories is less trustworthy than assumed. Third, honest answer. Respondent may be reluctant to answer completely and honestly when researchers ask about sensitive issues or issues that are believed to threaten them. Fourth, open versus closed question. Open-ended question require structure and free responses. Closed questions are think about structure and fixed responses. Last is neutral position, floater, and selective rejection. Neutral position. Survey researchers can consider whether they should over neutral positions such as the choice of no opinion. To respondents who do not have knowledge or do not have opinions. Floaters are the answer floating respondent. Many respondents will answer don't know. If there are choice in the question or say they don't have opinion if asked directly. Selective rejection. Some respondents refuse to answer certain questions. This often happens in cases involving sensitive issues. Next is types of surveys, advantages and weaknesses. This topic will discuss advantages and weaknesses from types of survey. The first, questionnaires by letter and self-performed. The advantages, researchers can give or send questionnaires directly to respondents, then record their answer. Respondent can complete the questionnaire when there is time. The weaknesses, people did not fill out and return the questionnaire by mail. Telephone interview. The advantages is researchers can sample respondents from lists and telephone books and immediately reach many people in all geographical areas. The weakness is costs are quite high and interviews are limited. Face-to-face interview. The advantages is has a high and complex respondent get, can ask all types of questions and can use a broad probe. The weakness is big interview bias and appearance, tone of voice, words, questions from the interviewers can influence the respondent. Web survey. The advantages is fast and cheap, be static and interactive. Weaknesses, coverage, privacy, and verification. And there are still people who do not have access to the internet. Next is interview survey. This topic have 2 points. The first, role of interview. The interviewer has a difficult role. They violate the respondent's times and privacy limits. Work together and foster relationships to obtain information that may not be directly beneficial to the respondent. They must explain the nature of survey research or provide clues about the social role in an interview. At the same time, the interview must remain neutral and objective. Interview stage. Starting with opening and introduction. The main part of the interview consists of asking questions and recording answers. The final interview stage is the time to resign when the interviewer said thank you. Last is ethical survey. Surveys can be conducted in ethical or unethical ways. The main ethical issue in survey research is invasion of privacy because respondents have the right to decide when and to whom they reveal personal information. Respondents will provide accurate and honest information when asked about this privacy when comfortable in an interview situation with mutual respect and trust. The interviewer must be able to respect all respondents, reduce in confidence, and protect the confidentiality of survey data.
Moving on to the second book in chapter 11, non-reactive research, and secondary analysis. Non-reactive research. In this study, the people studied did not realize this but left evidence of their natural social behavior or actions. Variations in non-reactive observations. Size of erosion and size of accretion. Blind non-reactive measures follow the logic of quantitative measurement. The observers build a construct, then connects the construct to non-reactive measures. Next one is content analysis. Content analysis is non-reactive, allows researchers to see and reveal content in communication sources. Three types of research questions for content analysis are content relating to large volume of text, content that may be at a distance or scattered, and content that is difficult to see or documents with casual observation. The researcher operationalized the construct with the coding system, measurements in the analysis of the content of a structured observation. Next is coding validity and reliability. There are two main types of content analysis coding. The first one is manifest coding, involving surface content that is visible in the text, and the second one is latent coding, looking for basic and implicit meanings in the contents of the text. The researchers measures intercoder reliability, a type of reliability equality with statistical coefficients that identify the level of consistency between the coder. So, how to do analysis study of content? So, the first one is formulate research questions. The second one is determine the unit of analysis. Next, develop a sampling plan. And then, make coding categories and recoding sheets. After that, check coding and intercoder reliability. And lastly, data collection and analysis. Conclusion cannot reveal the intent of the creator of the text or the effect of the message in the text on the recipient. Statistics or documents. Appropriate topic. Existing statistical research is appropriate for testing hypotheses involving variables in official reports of social, economic, and political conditions. Includes descriptions of the organization and the people in it. Social indicators. Social indicators can measure the negative and positive aspects of social life. Social indicators often involve implicit value judgments. Get data. Data can be obtained in the library or on the internet. Information or data is then recorded in a computer file or recording sheet for later analysis. Secondary data analysis for survey data. Secondary analysis statistically analyzes survey data that was originally collected by others as a comparison of primary research that collects quantitative data. The dangers of secondary data are secondary or statistical data may not be suitable for the research question. Researchers must understand substantive topics to use data. Cite statistics in excessive detail to help the impression of scientific rigidity to others. The problem of interference and theory testing. In content analysis, researchers cannot generalize from content to its impact on text readers, but can use the correlation logic of survey research only to show the relationship between variables. Ethical considerations. Ethical considerations are not an important issue in most non-reactive studies because the people observed are not directly involved. A bigger ethical problem is that official statistics are a social and political product.
I want to presenting about quantitative data analysis. Handling data. Matching data. Before examining quantitative data for hypothesis testing, we must place the data in certain form. Enter data. Most computer programs that are designed for true numerical analysis destroy data in grid format. In the grid, each row represents a respondent, participant, or course. Clearing data. After coding very carefully, you should check the accuracy of 10 to 15% of the data a second time. Result with one variable, frequency distribution. The word statistic can revert to a collection of number. For example, number tell how many people live in the city, and also the branches of applied mathematics that we use to manipulate and summarize numerical feature. The measure of tendency is certain. Summarize information about one variable into one number. We use three trend, center, mode, median, and mean. Size variation. The measure of centering tendency is summary of single number of distribution. However, its size only give its center. Result with variable. Bivariate relation univariate statistic describe a single variable isolation. Bivariate statistic are far more valuable. Scattergram. Definition of scattergram. Scattergram is scatter plot diagram are graph where you plot each case of observation. Bivariate table. We use bivariate contingency table in various situations. This table presents the same information as scattergram in more concise form. Size of the association. Association size is a data number that expresses the strength and often direction of relationship. More than two variable. Statistic control. Showing the relationship between two variables is an important first step in understanding data. Multiple regression analysis. Multiple is a popular statistical technique whose calculations are outside the discussion level of this book. Inferential statistic. Purpose of inferential statistic. Inferential statistics are based on probability theory to formally test hypotheses, permitting it is possible to draw conclusions from a sample for population and test whether descriptive results tend to be caused by random factor or real relationship. Statistical significance. Statistical significance show the probability of finding a relationship in a sample when there is no relationship in the population. Level of significance. We usually express statistical significance with respect to the level. To example, a statistically significant test of certain level of paper. Rather than giving certain probability. And then a conclusion. This chapter discusses the preparation of quantitative data to prepare for analysis and then analyze it complete data into graph or table or summarize them with statistical measure.
For the case, we choose a news with the headline Galang Dana, Cara Sahabat Indonesia Bantu Lawan Corona by CNN Indonesia on Monday, March 23, 2020. From this news text, we can analyze the text and the images, the analysis of social networks. From the news text is that the news informs celebs who uses their platform and social networks to open a donation to help the medical workers and the people who lost and cannot do their jobs during the lockdown. So this topic can be a topic for a qualitative research by using a document as a data resource.